Hello and welcome to those who are just now joining us and welcome back to those who were logged in here this morning. Before I introduce our first presenter, I would like to remind our student attendees to complete and return the Girls in Aviation Day worksheet that was emailed out. Make sure you complete that worksheet and send in a photo, a scan, or a file showing it was completed to be entered into a raffle for a SLU Aviation prize pack. You will have until October 9th to get those worksheets completed. So if you aren't or weren't able to attend each and every live session today, you can view the recordings on YouTube later this week. Our next presenter has had an exciting and interesting career. She began a military career as a flight attendant in the Air Force in 2010. From there, she was accepted to pilot training with the Georgia Air National Guard, and upon her graduation in 2017, was the first African-American female pilot for the Georgia Air National Guard. As a military pilot, she has been deployed and has over 325 hours of combat time. In addition to her military career, she's also been a flight attendant for Delta Airlines for over 9 years. And just as she transitioned in her military career from flight attending to piloting, she's doing the same thing in her civilian career. She's recently been hired by Endeavor Air as a first officer. She's an active member of the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals and Sisters of the Skies. I am now pleased to introduce you to Captain Andrea Lewis. Captain Lewis, I will let you take over from here.
Okay, hi everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today. I'm new to Zoom, so forgive me for not being fully looking in the right direction or something. So, perfect. Okay. So thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be able to speak with you all today. Thanks for the introduction. That was great. I can't believe that I'm actually sitting here talking to you guys. You know, it's so funny because when I was growing up, I didn't always know that I wanted to be in aviation. So I, graduated from high school. I went to the University of Georgia. And I actually have a degree in French out of all degrees. It's definitely not anything, STEM related, but I didn't know that I was interested in aviation at the time. So I graduated with a degree in French, which actually worked out really well for me to be able to, get into being a flight attendant. So when I graduated, my dad was always like, you know what, you should join the Air Force. And I was like, haha, just kidding. I'm definitely, not trying to wear combat boots. That's definitely not something that I was really interested in. But he also gave me a stack load of my bills that he was paying. And I was like, oh, let me try to figure this out. So so I joined the Air Force Reserves as a flight attendant because actually, fun fact, my mom is a flight attendant. She's newly retired at Delta Airlines. She retired after 43 years of service. So it's now a blessing to have her home, and being able to share that in common with my mom. My mom's my coworker, is pretty amazing. So that's how I got my start as a flight attendant. So I was actually with the 73rd Airlift Squadron, which is based out of Scott Air Force Base. I was flying the C-40C aircraft, which is a Boeing 737. It's my baby. I love 737s. That's like my dream, is to fly a 737. But I did that for 5 years, and I was flying presidents and congressional delegates and foreign nationals and traveling all over the world. And I was just living my best life, honestly. It was amazing. But then my life completely changed. And my dad actually, who was a retired American Airlines captain, he passed away. So I was, having a rough time grieving. And so I started flying. I was like, you know what? I literally woke up one morning and I said to myself, well, why don't I just start flying? My dad always wanted me to fly. Like, let's just go have a flight. So I literally this year, actually, or not this year, but this time of the year, back in 2011, I actually took my first flight, and I never stopped. You know, it was just something I was doing at first. It's just like, oh, I'm going to get my private pilot's license. I'm going to fly, you know, little, my mom calls them mosquito airplanes, but little small Cessna 172s. And, you know, I was, you know, that was going to be it. Well, my unit at the time, because I was, you know, again, enlisted in the Air Force Reserves. Well, my unit was like, well, you have to go and be an officer and you got to go to pilot training. And I was like, yeah, okay, maybe. So I started on that path and I just kept on going. So here I am 9 years later. And, you know, I tell people all the time when they get started, I say, you know what, this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. There's definitely a lot of struggles and a lot of, you know, things that you really have to be on top of, and having that attention to detail. And every day is not going to be a great day, but you just have to keep on going. So, you know, what I always tell people is, you know, the first thing you have to do is that you have to start. So I wasn't thinking so much of like big picture. Sometimes I mentor people and, you know, they're like, well, I want to be an Air Force pilot. I'm like, well, that's great, but we got to start somewhere. So it's good to have an end goal, but like, sometimes you can get so overwhelmed with this idea of, you know, one day being a captain at, you know, United Airlines or something, flying a 767, that you forget, you know, that you're like, well, let's just go on the flight today. Like, let's just, and then before you know it, you have all these hours and you're like, oh, now I've reached my goal. Now what? You know, so I always just tell people you have to get started. So now, after graduating from pilot training and becoming, you know, the first African-American female pilot in the Georgia Air National Guard, I fly a heavy Boeing 707, which, fun fact, is actually the first commercial airliner, jet airliner, that was out there at the time. So this is like a 1950s, like it's pretty standard as far as pilotage goes. So it's not, you know, fancy with the glass cockpit or anything. So it really does, you know, make you want to be, you know, a better pilot. I really do enjoy flying it. We do air refueling, which is something I never thought I did or would do, going into being a military aviator. And so what I would say to people if they're deciding on whether to go the civilian or the military route, because I've done both. I started out, you know, civilian, and then I switched over. I would say you have to basically just, it's just, you get to do so many things that you never thought you would be able to do. Like, again, like air refueling, which is basically when you, we take off and we're about 22,000 feet in the air and we're getting thousands of pounds of gas. It's like a gas station in the air from another airplane. And you're like 10 feet away from this other airplane going like 250, 300 knots. So it's really hand flying too. There's no autopilot for us. So it's fun. It's just something that, you know, you just get good at and you're like, oh, I could do this, you know, and it gives you a lot of confidence. And, you know, it's a great skill, you know, to say that you're able to do. So, and on top of that, even in training, I was doing formation, which is basically when you're like, you know, another like 6-10 feet away from another airplane, and you're just kind of going together, and you're you know, really trusting your lead when you're the wing. So it's when you're flying next to someone. So it's really an interesting training program that allows you to have this skill that you're able to go and do the mission. And not just that, but you're a great pilot. You're one of the world's best pilots, you know, having gone through that training experience. So I definitely would, you know, say the military has definitely been a great training experience for me. And I'd highly encourage everyone to maybe look into that path if that's something that you're considering. So yeah, now I fly for Endeavor Air, which is basically a Delta connection carrier, a small, a smaller airplane, well, compared to, the bigger airplanes. But I fly it's called a CRJ 200, and it just holds 50 people. And it's a fun little, I call it my cute regional jet, CRJ. So it's a fun airplane to fly. It's like driving a sports car, kind of thing. So it's really fun. That's kind of how I got to where I'm at today. My future goals are to, they're changing, honestly. If I can be real candid with you all, it's changing. I started out at Endeavor Air and I always wanted to be a commercial pilot. Here I am, a commercial pilot, and I don't know that I really enjoy it as much as I thought I would. So I'm constantly revamping. I'm thinking about maybe flying cargo, especially now in this day and age with, the coronavirus, kind of putting a little bit of a damper on the travel industry. I'm thinking about, maybe UPS or FedEx one day. I'm also thinking about maybe taking more of an administrative role in aviation. I definitely love mentoring young girls, young people. Anyone that's interested in the aviation path, because I feel like I've, done a little bit of both ends of the jet. So now all I need is to learn how to use a wrench, and then I could be a maintainer and fix the airplanes. But that's not going to happen because I can't work a wrench. But the point of it is that I think that that's my future, is something that, and the great thing about aviation is there is always something that you can do. Like, if you don't like being a flight attendant, then maybe be a pilot. If you don't like being a pilot, maybe, do something administrative. I mean, it's just such a great industry to get into. So I'm going to stop right here and see if there are any questions that you guys have.
Yes, please submit questions to the Q&A feature at the bottom of Zoom, or if you are on YouTube, I will monitor the chat feature there. Actually, Captain Lewis, we have a question that's already come in. Which presidents have you flown?
Well, I flew, presidents of other countries. So President Karzai, who was the president of Afghanistan back in 2014, 2013, somewhere around there. So, he was really nice. Nice person. He was.
Oh, that is very cool. Yes, the industry, well, and I guess a military career as well, brings you to meet people that, how else would we meet them in our day-to-day lives?
Yes. And that's so funny because, that's how, I got introduced to Stephanie, is just through aviation. I mean, some of my family, I have aunts that are, Delta flight attendants, and, not biological, but, you just they knew me when I was born, so they've seen me grow up, and now we're all coworkers, and, it's just, aviation has really just changed my life, brought my parents together. My dad was a pilot, my mom was a flight attendant. I am a product of yogurt in the airport, me and my twin sister. So it's so fun.
Yeah. And actually, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. Did you have the opportunity to fly with your mom in the same crew while you were a flight attendant?
I did. Yeah, I was the boss though, I I was the flight leader. I was like, Mom, did you brief the emergency exits? If you haven't, I need you to brief the emergency exits right now. The door is about to close. We're about to close the door. I need you to do. I'm just kidding. But no, it was so fun working with her. We did a 3-day trip. We had, I think it was a San Francisco layover or something. So we got to get dinner and hang out a little bit, do a little shopping. She bought me clothes. So that was nice.
Yes, that sounds great. Work and then the fun side of, when you're done with your duty day.
Yes, when you're done, you're done.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what thing that I do love about the commercial industry. It's everything's done for you. you know, you don't have meetings or no one's looking for you. You go, you fly, you leave. And it's really nice. But I do love the leadership aspect of the military side of being a pilot. So right now I'm looking at going on some active duty orders so that I can be, you know, more influential with doing certain projects and things. I love using my type A organizational skill part of my personality. So, you know, I really love being able to be around people, because that's something honestly that I know that sounds strange, but when I'm flying as a commercial pilot, you don't get to talk to as many people as you think. You know, like it's just me and the captain, and I'm just like, okay, well, I love, like, the part I loved about being a flight attendant was that I got to interact with all those people, like you were saying, like, you know, I can, you know, just be around, you know, meet different people and just, you know, get to, you know, change, like learn more about myself and, you know, hopefully make a difference in someone else's life by just talking to them. You know, well, you don't get that opportunity, obviously, when the doors closed. Just so, and then by the time you're like, all right, everything's shut down, you know, you're like, hey, well, on a 50-seat airplane, you know, especially nowadays, you're only 60% capacity, 20 people or 30 people or so, they're gone, you know? And I'm like, oh, well, maybe next time. So I try to get faster just so I can say bye to the people, but not that fast
yet. No, you bring up a really interesting part of, yes, being in the airlines, you're around people all day in theory, but, you know, in between actually doing your job, you know, of flying the aircraft or flight attending, there are a lot of duties, you know, outside just speaking with passengers, but the day goes by quickly, and your coworkers are always changing, and you know, sometimes that's a great thing, and sometimes that's more of a challenge. But yeah, we have another question that came in. What is the average salary? So could you talk a little bit more about maybe from the military perspective, salary wise, and then also on civilian, but specifically the regional airline and those salaries and how those have changed over time?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's just so funny because I remember being like at the, you know, the bottom of the, you know, I guess I'll start with military. So when I first got hired, I was, you know, I went to basic training, you know, and I was what we call an A1C, or an airman first class. So that's like an equivalent, the grade is an E2, E3. Oh my gosh, I should know that. But so the pay wasn't, you know, stellar. Then I transitioned to Delta, and I started at the, you know, the bottom, and I was getting paid, I think it was $24 an hour, $23 an hour, something like that when I first started. So, and there are two ways.
Sorry, I want to interrupt. The per hour is per flight hour, not
per flight hour.
Working hour.
Yes, thank you for saying that. So, so military, you're paid when you have an extended, you know, over 30 days worth of orders, then you'll get paid, you know, every 2 weeks, you know, a salary just like anybody else. Now, when you're not on orders in the military, you're paid based off of the days that you work, because now you are part-time, and, you know, so you're just paid by the times that you come in. Essentially. And what I was required to do was, I was on a contract of 6 years, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year. Essentially is what is the basic requirement for being a reservist slash traditional guardsman, like I am in the Georgia Guard right now. So that's generally how you're paid from the military perspective. And then of course, the more you get promoted, the more years of service you're in, the higher your pay. So right now I'm a captain. I'm an 03 in the Air Force. and I have over 10 years of service. So my pay is different. And I won't get too far in depth with that, but that's generally, and it is good pay. But, I mean, I'll put it in this perspective. I could work like a week of military pay and get paid more money than I would working a month at Endeavor. So generally speaking, obviously taxes and stuff and all that, taking that into consideration, but generally I can work less. And then when I'm working, if I'm not flying, I really have no additional duties right now as a military person. So I can go in and like check my email. I take like a 2.5-hour lunch. I mean, it's just more camaraderie, based. It's just, as long as I'm up to date on all of my personal, requirements, and I'm not flying or doing anything mission related, your time is your time. So, and that's just because I don't have any additional duties. So I think military is great because I say that general to say, you get paid more money for a little bit less work, if you will. Commercial, you earn every bit of those dollars, I tell you. So it's not as great. Right now, I'm technically getting paid almost as much as I would be if I was a flight attendant as a brand new first officer at Endeavor Air, which, I'll say that's what it is now. Back in the day, it didn't used to be like that. Back in the day, the pay was a lot worse. And so, things in that center of I can't speak to like personally. I've not had that experience as a first officer for very long, so I don't know what the pay difference was. But it's a lot better now than it used to be for sure. And then when you get to be a captain for on a 777 going to Johannesburg, South Africa, then you're paid tons of money. That I don't know exactly the dollar amount, but it's just say it's pretty good.
Yeah, and it seems like on both sides, the military and civilian side, you're constantly working your way up in seniority, and the longer you stay in a position or with a company or with the military, that's going to be reflected in your pay. Yes. So that's kind of a nice goal to hit, to keep yourself on track if that's your motivation.
Yeah, and the thing is, as long as you do a good job, you show up on time, you do what's asked of you, you will get promoted, and you will, you know what I mean? So it's not like you have to like climb your way up to the top of the ladder. It's like, no, you've been here, you put in your time, you're on time, you're not, haven't gotten into any trouble, you haven't done anything you shouldn't have done. It's like, great, here you go, more money, more seniority, more pay, so it's longevity. That's why people stay in it for so long. My mom was, like I said, she, even though she wasn't a pilot, but she was a flight attendant for 43 years. And people do that. I know people who are flight attendants for over 50 years, 50, 60 years. I mean, well, there's an age cutoff for pilots, so it's 65, but not flight attendants. Look, they'll be in there.
I have another question for you. As a pilot, have you ever slept in the cockpit before?
No. So no. So on our jets, we do have like cots, if you will. Mm-hmm. So you can rest, and switch out with the pilot if you want. And a lot of the commercial jets have crew rest for the pilots and flight attendants. So that's always nice, like on the 767 and the A350s, the larger jets have that. But we do have, you are allowed 45 minutes of what we call like controlled resting time. So the other pilot, so if you could sit in the seat for 45 minutes and close your eyes while the other pilot flies, that is legal to do. I've never done it, but it is, you can do that.
No, interesting. Yes. And someone else is asking, so typically how long are you home versus how much time do you spend out of town?
Oh, that's a good question. I always say if I'm at home, I'm not making any money. So, um, well, so now I'm trying to do a balance. So I would say a typical week, like this week, for example, I'm flying tomorrow night, and then I work. I have drill this weekend, and then right after drill, I'm going to have probably a 4-day trip with Endeavor. So I might have potentially like 7 days in a row of work, and then I might have 2 to 3 days off, and then work another 4-day trip. You have there. You have, I think it's like 12 or 13 days a month that you are required to have off per our union contract. Don't quote me on the number, but there is an amount of days that you have to have off per month. Now I'm guard, so I obviously will work a little bit more than maybe what's in the contract, just for personal choice, because I'm working 2 jobs. But if you're working as a commercial pilot, there's a minimum number of days they have to give you off per month. I think it's like 12 or 14 days. I should know the answer to that, but I don't. I'm new.
As long as you get the days off, that's what counts.
Yeah. So and then that's another thing too. So commercial flying, not to like rain on anyone's parade, but with respect to seniority, I mean, you working holidays, you're working birthdays, every day. It's a 24/7 job. I was once, when I was a flight attendant, I was called at 3 o'clock in the morning to leave to go to Lagos at 6 a.m. and for on a 3-day trip. I was on reserve. So it's it's not for everyone. I mean, there are some challenges just from a domestic lifestyle perspective, that can come with being in this aviation industry. But I've also flown first class to Dubai, so for like $12. So it kind of evens itself out.
Oh, definitely. Captain Lewis, I think we are quickly running out of time, but I have some more questions that were submitted for you.
Okay.
So can we talk about decision making and some of maybe an example of a difficult decision that you've had to make as a military pilot, and then a decision you'd have to make as a commercial pilot, or one, either or?
Well, I'm still new. I'm really not in the ability to, I don't have the authority to like make a decision as a co-pilot yet, but next year I will. I would say I'd have to get back to you on an actual moment. But I would just address it as far as being able to make decisions and having that decision-making ability. Like, you have to be a part of the crew, the people that you're working with. And if someone's not able to make a decision, yes, you have to come in and say, what, we're running out of gas. This is how long we have to wait until, we really need to be making some decisions. So, that is still a struggle point I'm having, as far as having good ideas and having people listen to me for my good ideas, but or bad ones, whatever. It's just that whatever decision that you do make, you have to be able to answer for it. So if it's a good decision, you have to have a reason as to how you made it. And then if it's bad, then you have to be able to stand in front of a wing commander, your boss's 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 boss, and say, why did you do this? And it better be good. So be very decisive in your decision making.
Oh, that's very good. Well, I want to just allow you one last opportunity. Do you have any additional words of encouragement or advice for our students who might be watching and hopefully found a lot of inspiration in what you've been sharing with us?
Yeah, you can always send me a message. I'm on Instagram at Aviator Andrea, and I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one to encourage you to continue down this path. But I guess I would say that you have to be tenacious about being a pilot. don't let anyone tell you, no, you can't do it. Within reason. I mean, if you know you can do it and you're able to do it, then don't let people tell you you can't do it. And it's going to take some time, and you are going to, stub your toe a couple of times, but it's going to be okay. So definitely don't lose faith. And yeah, happy flying.
Thank you so much for joining us, Captain Lewis. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know our viewers did as well.